was around 4 or 5, I lived with my mom in the Philippines. Back then, it was always a fun pastime to share stories about hauntings with my cousins and friends, but I personally never had one at that point. That all changed one night. As a kid, I had very vivid nightmares that I considered to be extreme for a child like myself to handle. Because of these dreams, I have a habit of waking up in the middle of the night and being afraid to go back to sleep. Unusually, I woke up abruptly one night, but I don't remember having a nightmare that time. Then I had this sense that I should look behind me, like when one's watching a scary video and you feel the need to check your surroundings. Before I did, I looked at my mom, who was in a deep sleep next to me. After doing so, I looked behind me to my pillow, and to my utter dismay, there was a man lying down on my pillow as I sat up. I'll try my best to recall what I saw in detail, seeing as it was about 14 years ago now. The man's face had a weird look to it. His skin was painted with what I could only describe as camouflage, like the ones that soldiers used on themselves. I got only a brief glimpse, but he looked like he was resting, both eyes closed. He made no interactions with me, nor did I attempt to interact with him. I quickly turned back to look away from what I just saw, and I began to mumble prayers to myself. I began to break down, and that's as far as I can remember. I don't remember if I got sleep that night or what I did after. I believe about a year before that experience, my grandfather from my dad's side of the family had passed away. I didn't know much about him, aside from small calls I got from him and my dad. Interestingly enough, when I brought this story up to my grandmother years later, after moving to California, she said that it might have been him paying a visit. She told me that he was a veteran. He served in World War II. I hadn't known about this prior to her mentioning it, and in retrospect, I guess the camouflage thing makes more sense now. It was a really weird experience because it was the only time I could say that I've seen a ghost. My grandfather's, to be exact. Ironically, I don't have a strong feeling towards ghostly presences anymore since my move to California. It's almost like I don't believe in them anymore. But that one experience was so vivid and traumatizing in a way that it always reminds me to believe that there are more than we know out there. This happened way back in 2013, when I was in junior college. It was our college organization's annual art camp. For a short description, we're all in the fine arts department, and our organization holds this art camp where there's seminars from our professors and mentors, and all in all, team building activities. It's usually set up in a recreational venue. So, as I said, I was in junior, and it was our year as the officers of the said organization. So, we're the ones who chose the venue, planned the games, itineraries, and such. To give a brief description of the place, it's a rural area around Laguna in the Philippines. It's a huge recreational area with a hanging bridge leading to a campfire, pool area, and obstacle courses. In the middle of the venue, there's a huge open space function hall where the seminars were held. Our cabins were hidden by trees located far behind the hall. The first cabin was for the mentors and professors, while the last two were occupied by higher year students. The middle three were occupied by the rest of the students. On the right side of the function hall, there's an outdoor lounge area with a life-size chessboard. If you walk straight further, there's the obstacle course area. Further from it, the pool and the foresty area where the campfire and hanging bridge are located. This particular story was experienced by my classmates. It was already night, around 8 p.m., Our scheduled seminar was already finished and everyone was done with their dinner. Some of the students were chilling in the patio area of the cabin, some walking around, and others, us, the officers, were busy planning tomorrow's activities. The guys, Gab, Wally, Kev, Alan, and Hero, were chatting and chilling inside their cabin. One of them decided to explore around. Hero suggested that they play at the chessboard area, so they decided to go, all of them, except for one. Gab approached Frank, a freshman, dozing at the top bunk. He asked if he wanted to come with them, but Frank was sleepy and he said no, turning his back to them. Before leaving, Gab asked Frank if it's all right to borrow his slippers because he had none, and Frank signaled okay. So the 5 guys were heading out of the cabin, fooling around, laughing. They look around and they saw students slowly heading to each of their cabins to rest. They were almost a few yards away from the chessboard when Gabe noticed that someone was walking parallel to them. The guy was heading to the large old coconut tree adjacent to the chessboard area. Gab was confused and stopped walking. Wally, Kev, Alan, and Hero noticed the walking guy as well. It was already dark, and with minimal lights around, it was hard for them to see far. Gab tried to rub his eyes and he recognized the walking guy. It was Frank. They all shouted, "Frank, come here!" Hero realized that Frank stopped walking and turned to them. No expression at all. Alan was confused as well, and he asked if it was really Frank. Gab realized something creepy and faced the guys. "How could it be Frank when I'm wearing his only slippers?" he mumbled nervously. They all looked at the guy that they were calling earlier and noticed it continued walking and then suddenly disappeared behind the old tall coconut tree. The guys collectively gasped, ran, and shouted loudly back to their cabin. When they reached the door, Wally opened it, only to find out that Frank was sleeping deeply with his headphones on. They woke him up, slapped him softly, and asked him if he was okay or if he had walked outside. Frank rubbing his eyes open, saying no, confusedly. The 5 guys had gotten so scared that they were trying to outrun each other, heading to our cabin to tell us what happened. I was so scared, but not actually surprised, since it felt creepy around the area during nighttime. It just felt really strange and off. I had my experience the night before, but I wasn't sure it was paranormal. I was the only one awake at the time. It was 2 a.m., and I hear giggling around our cabin, like kids running around, chasing each other. I also noticed silhouettes walking past our screen door, though I personally tried to dismiss it, thinking of it as some of the students were just still awake, fooling around outside. But I wasn't able to sleep until 5 a.m. So, I believe that place had ghosts and elements in it, as per the recount of some of the students as well, not just mine. You can easily tell if something is creepy in a place just by the feels it gives off.